to pay such low wages as national companies?
Well, it's the same thing we are going through now. You know, when some of these companies go to El Salvador, Nicaragua or so, they go over there and pay people $2 a day, not an hour. When here you have $4.50 an hour. So because of that cheap labor, they manufacture those things cheaper there and sell it at the same price they will sell it here, so they make a lot of money. Okay, so when Aristide came in, he said, look, some of you foreign companies have to start paying our people the right wages, you know, not give them $1 and then sell that product for $20. That's exploitation, you know, so that's what I want. And then when he made those kind of statements, and they knew that's what he was coming to, the business community started getting very worried about him.
Already not so sure of him at that
Exactly. Already they distrusted him before he became president. Now, when he became president, you know, and said all those things, it was even worse. You know, so that opened a big gap between him and the business community. But the catalyst really to his overthrow came after he came back from New York. He had gone to New York in September to speak at the United Nations. When he got back at the airport, he made a statement which in a way could be interpreted as a threatening, even if you hear that statement yourself, you know. He made a statement saying that he has given the business community a week or so for them to comply.
About to pay taxes and
every other thing, you know, he has said otherwise. And those people interpreted as meaning he's going to unleash the mob against them. To, you know, start killing and do whatever they want to, and, you know...
the haves against the have-nots.
Exactly, exactly. Carry out what they call the chukage. That means tire lynching. You know, they put tire on your neck and put, you know, kerosene or petrol and burn you alive, that kind of thing. So that's what they felt. So that night, really, that's when the army moved against him. And even when the coup was in process, Aristide had called the American embassy and the French ambassador, and they said, well, nothing is happening. But as soon as, you know, he kept on that phone, the army moved, arrested him. And in fact, he told me that when they arrested him, they said, well, some people say, well, let's kill him right now. And some said, no, let's leave him. He's still our president. Let's just take him to the airport, put him in a plane. And those who wanted him alive won. But there are people who wanted to kill him right there.
Right at that particular point.
That's right. And he said, well, he called...
And that would have really been possible had they decided to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And he said, well, you know, when Sidras was sitting down there with me, and I looked at him, and he laughed at me and said, well, now I'm the president. You are no more the president. You know,
this is the Army General now.
Yes, Sidras. Yeah, when
president.
Exactly, when they arrested him, you know, he looked at Sidras, and Sidras looked at him and told him, yeah, I'm the president now, you know. And they put him in a plane and flew him to Venezuela, because he's a very good friend of Carlos Andreas Perez, who was the former president of Venezuela, who was just impeached for corruption, you know. So from Venezuela, he came, you know, to the U.S. And of course, Bush had, you know, supported him, you know, one way or the other, but not really forcefully, kind of lukewarm, you know, support. So that's exactly the situation where we are now. Since then, you know, he has been trying to, you know, go back to Haiti. All, you know, efforts to do that has failed. Now come the governor's agreement, you know, in New York in July, which stipulated that Aristide will be back in power October 30th, as far as some guarantees and conditions are met, which was one, you know, that General Sidras and Michel Francois, who is the chief of Port-au-Prince Police, stepped down from power, and that Aristide decree an amnesty, grant an amnesty to
all of those who've been involved in it.
Yes, to the officers, you know, who overthrew him. That was a very sticking point and a sore spot, because in my conversations with him, I had really told him that personally and on the phone. We normally talk with him once in a while on the phone, every 2 weeks at least. And I told him, I said, look, why don't you grant these officers amnesty? You know, just grant all of that blanket amnesty, and tell the Haitian people that, you know, let the bygone be bygone. You know, no victor, no vanquish. Let us just start.
An Abraham Lincoln kind of attitude.
Exactly. Let's in Nigeria, after the Civil War, you know, 3 years Civil War that killed over 1 million people, The president at that time, Gowon, came out and said, look, no victor, no vanquished, no trials, nothing. Let everybody start afresh. That healed, you know, the country. I said, do that. Just say, look, everybody is free. Nobody will be punished for whatever they did before or now. Let's start building our country anew. But he has a stubborn streak. Now, talking to him, he's a very humble person, but he's very steely inside. You know, that's my impression whenever I've talked with him on the phone or in person. I told him, I said, look, give these people amnesties and forget everything. Start afresh, you know. He said, no, I can't do that because they've killed people and, you know, the Constitution, you know. I said, well, forget about that Constitution for now. Your main goal now is to go back to the country. I say, if you don't go back to the country, yes, you are president. But if you're not living in your country, you can make policy. You can make policy. So when you go back to the country, then let your supporters, you know, do something. I said, the Constitution can always be changed later. You can have your members in the legislature, they pass under law, you know, changing things. All that can be done. I said, that's what a smart politician does. And then you have to be able to maneuver between different competing interests, just like Arafat does very well, you know, shifts from time to time. You might not compromise on your basic principles politically, but you can compromise on strategy. You know,
on how to achieve those principles.
Precisely. The principle remains the same, but the strategy, you know, can be changed. That's what politics is all about. You know, politics is simply management of people. And when you manage people, you are managing different interests. And different interests have different, you know, connotations. And so you have to be able
different demands.
Exactly. You have to balance these. And that's what a politician takes. You can't be very rigid on issues. Now, when that agreement was being signed, he actually didn't want to sign the agreement to begin with. He took a phone call from Al Gore telling me, look, this is the best deal we can get now. If you don't sign this, we'll go back to square one, and it will be hard, you know, to sign anything else. That's why he signed the agreement. Now, the army says, well, yes, Aristide has decreed an amnesty, but that's not enough, okay? We want the legislature to meet and pass an amnesty law. Now, legally speaking, the army cannot be smart in taking that position. Okay, Aristide has decreed an amnesty, which is fine. But you see, if he goes back to Haiti, he might just change his mind. Because even though it's a decree, it's not, you know, it's not a law.
That's like the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not a law.
Yes.
But when the legislature passes it now, it becomes a law that Aristide can't even go back on. He can change it without the legislature.
It's the force behind whatever that amnesty could actually... Well, now, look, over the last minute or two, Dr. Madu, if you had to advise President Clinton this morning about how to get us out of this Somalia situation that we're in, what are some of the things that you would say?
Very, very easy. I've always maintained the position that some of our foreign policy advisors really do not understand the countries or people they are dealing with. To begin with, number one, Admiral Howe, who is the so-called UN, you know, special representative in Somalia, should never have been sent to that country. Okay, this is a man who does not understand the country. He's a military man who believes in using force instead of diplomacy. He started this problem. You know, secondly, Boutros Ghali, who is the UN Secretary General, should not be allowed to make policy for the United States in Somalia. You see, Boutros Ghali and Admiral Howe are the two chief problems we have in Somalia. Both of them have an animus against General Mohammed Farah Aidid. And you see, you are not supposed to make policy that affects
based on animosity.
Exactly, that affects millions of people based on your dislike of a leader. That was the problem. You know, two of them are against Aidid, and everybody came to see that now. And that's exactly why Bob Dole has been crying that, you know, Boutros Ghali should not be allowed to go to Somalia anymore, and Admiral Howe. So both of them, really, Admiral Howe should be removed. I would probably suggest Robert Oakley to be the special envoy there, because he understands the thinking and the feelings of Somalis, just like the Italian soldiers told, you know, American soldiers before. Say, look, we don't need to be shooting here. We were colonial masters to these people before. We understand their thinking. Let's talk to Aidid and his people. That would be better. But they ignored it.
Dr. Madu, it's time to wrap this up, and let me thank you for coming by and giving us all of that excellent information about Haiti and Somalia and some of the things that we ought to do in order to try to extricate ourselves from the situation that we found ourselves in dealing with these two very, very significant countries. And again, let me thank you, and let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.